Hello, welcome to Stories That Work. I am Father Matthew Howell, and I am joined today by a very special guest co-host, Father Stephen Howell. Hey, Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, father, son?
Oh, I'm just peachy. It's good to have you back on a broadcast. The last time we were together online was back in June when we finished our Genesis Bible study. Deacon Adam is on assignment today. That's show business lingo for he can't make it. But I'm really glad you're joining us because we have really special guests. But before we keep going, will you start us with a prayer?
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, O heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, who art everywhere present and fills all things, the treasury of good things and giver of life, come and abide in us. Cleanse us from every stain and bless this time in presenting a wonderful, joyous, God-filled ministry. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. All right. Before we bring on our guests today, I want to give an update on the St. Athanasius Academy. The homeschool tutorials have started this week. They're going well. The St. Athanasius Academy has core subjects: math, language arts, science, and social studies or history for grades kindergarten through 12th grade, plus lots of electives, plus Orthodox study classes for grades K through 12. So classes have started this week. Some of the classes are full. There are still many classes with space. And as parents are navigating the back to school season, we want them to know that there are options out there for homeschool help. If your public school closes down or the online distance learning isn't working for you with the public schools or whatever setup you have, our online learning is designed for that. So classes don't meet more than twice a week for the younger kids, and for the older kids, it's often once a week for classes, but the curriculum is laid out very well through the whole semester. So check out saaot.edu. I put it in the comment section down there. Check that out if you need help with homeschool this semester. And another important thing to remember is that the classes are actually semesterly, which means that if you get through this semester and Christmas rolls around, but you think you need a change, you can still enroll and students can start with us even in the spring. But our teachers are open to helping anybody who needs it right now. So if you have a student who needs to enroll, please contact us right away. We'll bend over backwards to help you. So that's our update for today, and I think it's time to bring out our guests. Let me see. Today our guests are Peter and Sharon Georges, coming to us from Ohio. Hello, Peter and Sharon.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Father.
And Father.
And Father.
Peter and Sharon are the founders and directors of the St. Nicholas Uganda Children's Fund. And I've known Peter and Sharon for many years. They spoke in Eagle River. When was that? 2009 or so? 2012? I don't remember. At the Eagle River Institute. And then my dad has also known them for many years. So we'll get into that in a little bit. We have a video to play about the St. Nicholas Uganda Children's Fund. Should we start with that before we pepper you with some questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Give me just a moment. I just need you to sit there awkwardly while I click a few buttons, okay? Let me see here. There we go. All right. Here we go. If my computer will get going. I'm almost there. See, I told you, awkwardness. Um,
Don't suppose we can show it from this end?
Maybe it'll be a live presentation.
While we're waiting, I would like to express my thanks to all the good people in Alaska. St. John's Cathedral, we met Father Matthew and he was Deacon Matthew. We spent more than a week there in that community, met so many wonderful people. And we're blessed not only to speak at the Institute, but to give a presentation about our work. And many people from that parish began supporting us, sponsoring children with us. And it's just been a blessing through the years. And Father Stephen, I think it's the first time we've seen you face to face. We've spoken on the phone many times. And for those of you who don't know, Father Stephen was on the board of the Cottonwood Foundation, who during some very difficult times for our ministry blessed us with some very generous grants that got us through those tough years. So thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. That was a pure joy on our part.
all right. Well, I'm sorry about that. I'm the host, and my computer kicked me out of the studio. So we're just going to blame it on COVID. In the year of 2020, that is going to happen. So I'm glad that you were able to at least keep going a little bit. It looks like I have the video ready, and as soon as I can get it queued up, as soon as I get it queued up, I'm gonna maximize it and minimize us. So bear with me here. I guess before the video, what year did you start the Uganda Children's Fund?
We actually began the fund in 2005. We were OCMC missionaries at the time and had begun supporting children in school on the side in addition to our regular jobs.
The St. Nicholas.
Here we go.
Here we go. All right. Okay, you ready?
Let's go.
This Uganda Children's Fund is an Orthodox Christian ministry working in an impoverished neighborhood of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. Founded by Peter and Sharon Georges in 2005, the Uganda Children's Fund provides for the education, health, and welfare of Ugandan children, teens, and young adults.
Our mission is to educate orphans and other vulnerable children. No education in Uganda is free, and without education, hope for the future is dim.
Our goal is to develop our students into young adults who can find productive employment and break the cycle of poverty into which they were born.
Students are accepted into the program based solely on need, not religion, tribe, or any other qualifier. Beginning with just 3 children in primary school, we now support 240 students in primary and secondary school, vocational training, and university. More than 60 have completed their studies and are gainfully employed. All of our primary and secondary students receive school uniforms, shoes and socks, and scholastic materials, which are mandatory to attend classes. We also pay for school lunches, which offer a nutritious meal essential for their well-being and academic success. For many of our children, this is the only hot meal they receive each day.
All of our students receive comprehensive medical care, from treatment of scrapes and bruises to malaria and HIV/AIDS. We ensure that the children receive the proper health care and nutrition to grow and thrive. Our secondary students are given the option to attend boarding school away from the crowded and unsanitary conditions they face in their urban homes. Here they receive 3 meals a day and enjoy clean water, fresh air, and a safe environment.
Counseling is a very important part of what we do. These children lack parental input and support. We meet with each student individually and in groups, providing personal and academic guidance. All of our high school graduates proceed to university or vocational school, depending on their ability and interests. In this final stage, students receive the education and training that prepare them for productive careers. The St. Nicholas Uganda Children's Fund is supported by donations from caring individuals, groups, and churches. We seek to develop a generation of educated and self-motivated individuals who can carry on a legacy of strength out of poverty.
We welcome your participation in this compassionate yet practical ministry.
I'm grateful. I'm a graduate now. Wow. Long live St. Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for everything you've done for us.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for each and everything. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Oh, wow. That is just tugs at my heart every time I see it. So, so please tell us the story. How did you even begin this ministry?
We started it just little by little. We were working in administrative positions at the diocese, and we saw children out of school during school days, primary school children, little children. So I asked around, why were they not in school? And it turned out there is no free school. So orphans, of which 15 years ago there were many more orphans than there are today, thank God, today is less. Orphans, homeless children, children taken in by aunts, grandmothers, whatever, there's no chance they can go to school because all they can do is manage to feed them. And the Ugandan Archdiocese is right on the borders of a very big slum area outside the capital of Uganda. So we started helping 3 children, and then 5, and then 10, and it just grew from there. So eventually it became our full-time work.
By the end of 2007, we had over 200 children that we were supporting. And at that time, we had resigned from OCMC and set up a children's fund as an independent organization, incorporated it in the United States early 2008, and incorporated as an NGO in Uganda. So the fund became completely independent and self-standing in 2008. So it's been more than 12 years now.
Wow. So let me take you one step further back. How long were you OCMC missionaries down there?
From 2002 to 2007.
Okay. All right. And so obviously that wasn't you weren't newlyweds at the time. So what I want to know is what led you to get into the mission field during your years of retirement?
Well, I'll tell my side briefly, and then we'll let Sharon. Hers goes way back before mine. Mine goes back to Project Mexico.
Hey, all right.
To our granddaughter, Anna. In 2001, some young ladies from our parish wanted to go spend a week in Project Mexico and needed an adult chaperone to take them. None of their parents were willing, so they came to their former Sunday school teacher, moi, and I said, sure, why not? And that week was momentous in my life. For anyone who's been to Project Mexico, I hope they're still doing the same thing. Between breakfast and leaving for the work site, we always had 15 or 20 minutes to collect our thoughts and write notes in a notebook. And I was sitting, I'd find a solitary place and look out over the dry plains near the ranch there and writing my thoughts. And I realized I had never been so happy or so at peace in my life. I was coming off 20 years of technical sales with AT&T and various spinoffs, very high pressure job. And I loved it. I loved my work, but I never had such an overwhelming sense of peace and belonging as I did then. And I knew then that I was going to have to leave the formal workplace and do something. Didn't happen for another year or so, but eventually it did, and it was inevitable. I had retired from my one company, worked for another company for 10 months and was downsized, which I saw as a sign from God and a blessing. And as soon as I got the word, while my manager is apologizing for firing me, and I'm thanking her, I ran down and told Sharon we can go. So, but Sharon's dream actually goes back further than that.
I grew up in the home of a Methodist minister. My father was a Methodist pastor. And one of the things the Methodist Church is very big on is missions. So we hosted through the years lots of missionary families. And my dream as a child was I would be a nurse and a missionary. So after we were married, I went to nursing school, and we raised our children. And I kept thinking sometime I'll be a missionary. And when we learned that OCMC sometimes sent medical teams, rarely at that time, I said, well, if they ever send an all medical team, I'm there. And in the year 2000, they organized an all medical team to go to Uganda. So I applied, I went. That was at the height of the AIDS crisis. We did all medicine, as they say, out in the bush. It's not an insulting term in Uganda. They themselves talk about when you go out of the cities, you're out in the bush. And the sadness and the need of the people was so great, it really touched me. So the next year I went on another OCMC trip, not medical this time, although I did get to use my medical training. And I went to Calcutta with the catechetical team. So this was the same year that Peter was going to Project Mexico. And when we both came home in 2001, I flew home the day before 9/11 through New York. And we said, okay, that's it. We're going abroad. It's time for us to go. And so things just went on from there.
Wow. Well, you can really see God's providence bringing you to this ministry. So then you applied to be OCMC missionaries. You were OCMC missionaries down in Uganda. I guess the term would be full time.
Yes, I had served on the board of OCMC for
Okay.
a couple of years. So we knew Father Martin well and the other board members. And at the board meeting when we met alone. Father Martin, we met with Father in 2001 because we left in 2002. And he said, where do you feel called to go? And Sharon said, India. And I said, Latin America. And Father Martin said, Uganda. And that resonated. He was absolutely right. That's exactly where we were supposed to go. And I've had an inexplicable love for Africa for years. And
I had been there on the medical team, so it seemed right.
So we had about 6 months to raise the money for the first year, which we did. And in July of 2002, off we went.
Wow. So then you see, you're there, you're living there among the people, and you see the need.
Yes.
And was there ever any doubt, like when you transitioned from OCMC into doing this ministry full time with the Children's Fund? Did you ever have any doubt about whether you were doing the right thing or needed to be somewhere else? Like, what was going through your mind at that time?
There was no doubt whatsoever.
Actually, it was a tremendous sense of peace because we were trying to divide ourselves, and we were less and less interested in the administrative work we were doing in offices there. And the bishop was less and less interested in the work we were doing. And the work with the children was more and more demanding and satisfying. So no, we knew it was the right thing.
Right? Wow.
Yes, absolutely. And still do.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the St. Nicholas Children's Fund that wasn't in the video. Like, did you start your own school, or how does that work?
There are plenty of schools in Uganda. In fact, when we return after every 6 months, we probably see another half dozen schools that open up. The challenge for us in the early years was finding a primary school and a couple secondary schools that we could work with, that shared our values, that were willing to work with us. We had experimented with different schools. We had some failures along the way. But from the beginning, we wanted to place children in schools that already existed. it's a tremendous undertaking to start a school from scratch over there.
Bureaucratically.
Yeah, let alone the money, to raise tens of thousands of dollars to build the structures and the classrooms and everything. A bigger challenge is the bureaucracy in Uganda, where everybody, every step of the way, has his or her hand out for a little money on the side to get this permit and that permit. And at this stage of our lives, we just didn't want to go through that. So that's why we decided to work with existing schools. And right now we have one primary school where all of our children attend. It's literally a stone's throw from the office. So the children, if they have any problems, any crisis, any needs, they can just run over and talk to us or one of our staff members. And for secondary school, we have a boarding school and a day school. We prefer our children to attend boarding. I mean, it's interesting. The primary kids, we want them in a day school because we feel it'd be best for them to live with their families.
Sure.
An aunt. It's
Right.
You don't want little kids in boarding school.
But for secondary, the teen years are dangerous years here and there. And our kids live in the city, in the slums, where there are a lot of temptations, a lot of pitfalls. So we like to get them out into the fresh air, 45 minutes to an hour away from Kampala, where they can have an environment, a pure learning and social environment.
And the schools are very strict. They have, they've developed on the lines of the British boarding schools, and they're very strict. And we feel like they're safer there. I mean, nobody is ever completely safe anywhere,
Sure.
except under God's providence. But we feel like they're safer there. And there's a matter of electricity. Almost none of our students or the households where they sleep have electricity. And there is a lot of studying to do in the secondary school years. Darkness falls at 7 p.m.
Right.
and they're in school till 6. So the
Wow.
boarding schools have some sort of electricity, whether it's city grid or solar or generator, they'll have some sort of electricity so they can study in the evenings.
Right. Uganda is right on the equator. So we have year round 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. So it's possible that, the secondary kids could leave for high school in the dark and go home in the dark if they're
Sure.
attending a day school.
So just for clarification, you still do not operate your own schools.
No,
You
we
are
don't.
using those established within the community, run by the community, but you
Yes.
have a relationship with those all the way. Your entire program is set up that way.
Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Nursery school to university and vocational school. What our office is like the home base. It's where they come if they have a problem. It's where we call them if we have a problem. It's where they come for counseling, love, just to say hello. We have parties there. We have alumni day there. Our office is what they all consider home. And that's where we are, and that's where someone is up till at least 6:30 every day. And the schools we use are very, very close.
So it's kind of like grandma and grandpa's living room, right?
Right.
You're exactly right.
They're there. Wonderful. Wonderful.
And together with, I have to mention our staff. We have a young man, actually,
In his 40s.
Frank and Agnes have been our staff from the beginning. And they were very young when they started with us. Now they're both in their 40s.
Still kids.
But
Still
they are just absolutely tremendous. They run the place when we're gone, although we're in touch with them every day by email or by WhatsApp, which our college students finally got me on WhatsApp. And Frank and Agnes if we're the grandparents, they're the aunt and uncle. And the children love them, they trust them. We trust them completely now. They've come along with us for the last 15 years.
And they started with us just as volunteers, getting nothing out of it. Each one of them in different ways saw what we were doing and offered to help. So we took that as a good sign.
Right. And the environment the kids come from, so many of them live with a grandmother or an aunt or a single mom.
Our neighbor.
A neighbor. And their caregiver is absorbed all day in trying to find, as I say in Uganda, try to find what to eat. That is to go out and do work to earn enough money to feed the family for the day. They don't have the time, they don't have the energy, and often not the inclination to look at the kids' schoolwork, to counsel them about personal things. And this is where
many of them have never been to
right,
school.
they've never been to school, they've never been counseled. And that, again, emphasizes the fact that our office is a home to the kids, and for the full orphans, the one who's never had a mother and a father, our office is their family, and the other students are their brothers and sisters.
And we are their parents.
Wonderful.
It's a real blessing.
From a financial standpoint, most of the money given to your foundation goes directly to educating the kids. A very low amount is for building maintenance, administrative cost. Most of it is going directly to the students and their work and support.
It is. We're very proud of that fact. We've been blessed that I was able to earn enough while I had a paying job that we can live on our pension and now Social Security. So Sharon and I take absolutely no money from the Children's Fund. And we even pay for our own airfare and all of our living expenses in Uganda. And this enables us to divert, I guess divert's not the good word, to apply 97 and 98% of all donated funds to the work in Uganda.
That's tremendous. Most nonprofits can't reach that threshold.
Yeah.
Well, and we understand. I mean, most nonprofits have to pay their people.
Right.
I mean, we do pay our staff, but we pay them according to what would be a nice high salary in the neighborhood.
Right.
So compared to American standards, that's very little. But for
Right.
them, it's changed their whole lives. It's allowed them to never want. We have our staff's children in school, and so they can do the work and never think about embezzling, like things that
Right.
happen in third world countries.
Yeah.
Because we have paid them enough, more than enough, but it's
Right.
still very little coming out of the fund. And we don't own buildings, so we don't have upkeep on buildings. We rent our office, we rent our home, and we hire buses when we take the children to boarding school 3 times a year. We hire
Sure.
the buses and drivers. We don't own expensive equipment. People have said to us, even our students, why don't you build a new office? Build this. And we say, but why? The one we're renting is just fine.
Right.
And we don't have to worry about it. So
It's also a lesson to everybody in contentedness, right?
very much, very much.
So what is your typical schedule like? Right now we're talking to you, and you are in Ohio. And when I say typical, let's use the term non-COVID schedule. Okay. Before COVID, what was your travel schedule like? How often were you down there? How often are you in the United States? What does that look like for you?
We divided the year 6 months and 6 months. We found that worked for us. We would normally go back to Uganda at the end of September and stay through the end of March. So this would cover most of the third school term. Schools are on the calendar year there, and finish up in early December.
And trimesters, there are 3 trimesters in the school year.
So we could wrap up in December, finish. The universities actually are on the same schedule as American universities. Their semester begins in August. And their graduations are in October. They're delayed. So we are there in time for most of the third term of the school year, for the first semester of university, and something that's very important to our university kids, we're there for their graduations. Because this is a huge milestone for kids who thought they'd never finish primary school. So that covers September and October and into November. The holiday, their summer vacation, although it's pretty much always summer there, is December and January. So we get the kids home from school, get them settled, review their report cards, decide what classes and schools they're going to go to the next year.
We sit with every student, every one of now, we have about 260 students at the moment. everyone during those months and talk about, especially the younger ones. Are they moving up to the next class? Are we holding them back? Because the schools don't make that decision. The parents do, because everybody's paying to go. So the school can't tell parents, you've paid for a school year and now you have to pay to repeat it. So we do that counseling and decision making with them. So every student, we have to have one-on-one time to discuss what's going on and move them from place to place if a move is necessary. Excuse me.
Right? No, absolutely. Along those lines, the schools will recommend a student repeat, but for most parents who are paying their own school fees for their kids, they do not want to pay for another year.
Sure.
And the school can't force them to do that. So we've made it very clear with our teachers, with the teachers in our schools, that we are more than willing to support them if there's a justified case to holding the student back. Coming into December, we've instituted an annual program where we look at probably about the 20 or so neediest families, which we identified with the help of Frank and Agnes, and we give them Christmas. Christmas is a very big holiday there, even for our Muslim families. And for them, what a perfect Christmas would be to get together as a family and go to church in the morning, have a meal together in the afternoon or evening, and have that meal include some meat.
It has to have some meat,
Some
or
meat.
it's not a real
Right.
celebration.
Because they rarely have any meat. So what we'll give to these families is
Money for meat and sugar, which is very valuable, and rice and a pineapple, because fruit is only consumed on holidays. So we give them a pineapple and rice and sugar, and then the money to buy the other things that they need. And we always tell them, you use this money, you buy chicken, or you buy beef.
and life in poverty, we have to do this within 4 or 5 days of Christmas.
Or 2 or 3.
If we gave it a week or two in advance, another crisis would come up and they'd spend it.
Sure.
They don't have refrigeration, a lot of them, so they have to buy the meat actually the morning of Christmas or the night
Or the day before, yeah.
Yeah.
Our home parish of St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in Mentor, Ohio, for their Advent project, donates money to buy a new outfit for each of our primary school children, a Christmas outfit.
Which is usually around 70, 80 children.
And this is also in December. So Frank and Agnes will take the boys and the girls respectively and go out and shop for new Christmas clothes for the kids, which they will wear until they fall off their bodies.
They'll wear it to church every Sunday for the next year.
And then
what's the average cost of an outfit? What's the average cost of an outfit?
$15.
Between 15 and 20 as they get bigger, and that's everything. That's trousers and shirts and sometimes ties for the boys. That's a real pretty dress for the girls, and sometimes we can buy them shoes also to go with it.
And then toward the end of December, we will have an annual Christmas party for the primary school children. We'll show a movie and give them snacks and treats and awards for the top students. And that fills up December. In January, we have our annual reunion, which we call Comeback Day, and invite all of our tertiary students and graduates to come back to the office and meet each other. And that is always a blessing too. The kids come back. It's like a big family reunion. And then have our secondary school meeting as we prepare for the new school year. January is probably our busiest month because we are out there. Frank and I will be out buying school supplies for between 250 and 280 students during that time, as well as getting the kids settled in their new schools. And then we begin the school year in February.
Excellent. I have a question, kind of jumping ahead, maybe changing subjects a little bit. Your tertiary and vocational training, what I remember from the grant application discussions, you had a special qualifier for those participating in those programs, that they once they were trained and graduated, they were expected to come back to the community and live and be in the community, add to the community, and give back to the community. Is that still in effect? And what's been the outcome of that project?
That is certainly our
hope.
our goal, and our directives to them. It's very common in Uganda among young people to see opportunities are better outside of Uganda. They don't understand how things work. In Europe, a lot of them get duped into going to the Middle East. There are many organizations in Uganda that trick these young people, collect a lot of money for them, and then send them to various Middle Eastern countries. And we constantly warn against this.
And we've had a few students go, and we have begged them not to go and not to believe the hype, and they go anyway. And when they arrive in the Middle Eastern countries, they take their passport away and say, we'll pay you when we've covered the cost of your trip and this and that and the other thing. It's really little more than human trafficking.
Right.
But thank God we
right.
haven't had many.
Less than 1 or 2% of our graduates have fallen for that. And again, against our advice. Another thing we found too is the older the student is when we take them, the more formed they are. Students that we've had since primary school are way more likely to trust us rather than what they're hearing on the outside. So we really tried not to take students older than 7th or 8th grade or the first year of high school. But the vast majority have stayed in Uganda, they're working in Uganda, and really improving the community and marrying and having children. We have Ugandan grandchildren now. And
oh, wonderful.
And comeback day is the day when they come back and tell their stories. Another blessing for us too is they reach that age, they've grown in confidence. It's not just a matter of earning power, but self-esteem and confidence. And they organize a meeting. All we do is host it. And the students, the graduate students take over.
When they arrive, we plan this like on a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 6. When they arrive, they start talking now, who's going to give the opening prayer? Who's going to give the closing prayer? Who's going to give a message? Who's going to start the introductions? We had 72, I believe, last time. And Anna was actually, when she was with us for this. They stand up, every one of them, and say, either if they're studying, I'm studying at so-and-so university, and I'm reading this subject. And the ones that have graduated say, and I am an entrepreneur, I am a teacher, I am a nurse, I am whatever, and I work at such and such. They're very proud, and they
so
all
you're
share.
actually, no, right. You're actually having an effect in the culture that you're living within.
We certainly hope so. Again, by God's grace.
It was never our plan, though. It was never our plan. Our plan in the beginning was to get a few kids off the street and into school. And everyone that has grown up and graduated has been an unexpected blessing. We never dreamed it would go this far. And we've had many graduates. I believe
over 100.
We've had over 100 vocational school graduates, and I think we've had more than 60 university graduates. By now.
Can you share 1 or 2 stories, examples of students that maybe made it through most or all of your program from beginning to end?
We've got quite a few success stories. We'll start with Maxensia. Max was an orphan. She was a troubled teen. We took her in, initially had some problems with, she'd been neglected her whole life, passed from family member to family member. We brought her into our program. She didn't trust us. We had to have some hard talks with her and have her decide, what she wanted to do with her life. If she was going to take advantage of what we were offering, she decided she would. She finished high school, got accepted to university, going for a bachelor's degree in journalism, in mass communication. I knew she was going to be somebody special when I went for graduation. She'd been on campus for 2 months. She greeted me at the university gate with a copy of the university newspaper. This is her freshman year, and she had a front page article with a byline. So I knew Max was going places. When she was a senior, she did her internship with a major publishing company in Uganda and actually had articles published in 2 of their magazines. And then she got a job with the Uganda Cancer Institute in public relations, and finally settled in with a Ugandan television network where she is a producer of a daily medical call-in show.
Like a
Doc Talk is the name of her show. So Max is definitely one of our stars.
She was so angry when we took her in our program because she had really been kicked around by her family.
Sure.
She was an orphan, and she stayed with a brother who was like 25 years older than her, whose wife didn't want her anywhere near, and then sent to live with an aunt. And she was so sulky, and she would hardly answer questions we asked her. We told her she had to shape up and be part of the family, and she just did. And now she encourages our other students when she comes for comeback day. So it's exciting.
Another orphan is Brenda. We took Brenda when she was in 3rd grade. She was a total orphan living with a stepmother right out of Cinderella. And we put Brenda in school. She was never a discipline problem. And she finished the first 4 years of high school. Just a brief aside, in Uganda, there's ordinary high school for 4 years. Then, depending on your academic qualifications, you can go from there to vocational school or to advanced level high school, which is 2 more years. That's a qualification for university. Brenda qualified to go to advanced level, but she said it was always her dream to be a nurse. So she took a nursing exam, went to nursing school, graduated, and now she's working as a
pharmacy dispenser.
A pharmacy dispenser. She's managing a small pharmacy and actually diagnoses and dispenses pharmaceuticals. And again, another total orphan that has really found herself in life. And she's married and has a daughter. So there's Brenda, who again we've had from 3rd grade.
All right. Well, I have a question about a couple of students. Now, I am a supporter of the Uganda Children's Fund, and this is a picture of Faith Esther, and I'm not even going to try to say her last name.
Mwanguzi.
There you go. Good job. Now, so my family has sponsored Faith for the last few years, and so every year you send us a picture and an update on how she's doing. So this is the most recent picture from last Christmas, and she was completing primary 1, which is 1st grade. Is that right? At the time, so that
because we started in preschool, if they need a place to be.
Okay.
We start them in preschool.
Okay. And so that means that now, starting the year in February, she's now in 2nd grade, primary 2.
Hopefully she will be. We're still waiting for word from the government of Uganda about reopening the schools.
Okay.
Schools closed down, and remember, our schools in March had just begun when the COVID thing came and they closed down the schools. So the president of Uganda may declare that the last school year was a dead year and they have to all start over again.
Sure.
We're hoping that's not the case, especially for primary, because this primary school that we work with, her school, about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, started a home learning program where they
just started.
They print the materials for all the grades from 1 to 7, and the children pick them up at school, take them home, work on them, bring them back to school, and the teachers sit with them one-on-one, grade the papers, counsel them, and then give them the next set of papers. So we'll see if what they're learning is enough to move them on to the next grade. But just like here, everything is up in the air with COVID.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you personally, I have a son and 4 daughters, and my wife, every time we found out that she was pregnant, she would put the name Esther on the list. But none of our girls have a first or a middle name of Esther. And so when we adopted, I say adopted, When we signed up to support a student and you connected us with Faith Esther, I was able to tell my wife as a Christmas present, now you have a child named Esther. And so this picture stays in our prayer corner downstairs, right next to the dining room table. And every time our family gathers to eat and to pray, her picture is right there. So we're able to pray for her and with her as she studies. And another one, that's personally, I want to thank you for the benefit to our family from this. It's been really good for our children. And then our church, through our good works basket, here's a picture. We have been supporting for the last few years, Magunga Patrick. And I want to do a little bragging about Patrick because he's the top of his class in kindergarten. And so I take direct credit for our church takes direct credit for his success. We say, yeah, Patrick's number one. But our church, what we're going to try to do, God willing, is support him from preschool all the way through university if that's where he chooses to go. So every year over the coming, 18, 20 years, there's a possibility of an increase in the support we'll give based on his tuition needs.
Thank you so much.
But I offer that, not so much to toot our own horn, but to show people the ways that you can support and the benefits that come from that. The people in our church, I bless houses every year, and I see Patrick's picture up in many homes in our church, in the prayer corners, and on the refrigerator, and whatever. And so our people are praying for him. And the financial support is important, but the prayerful spiritual support is just as important.
Yes.
As you've already shown, God's providence is at work in ways that we don't understand.
So true.
So I would encourage other priests who are watching, other individuals who are watching to get involved and make a donation. And you can request to, be in contact with one person. One other connection that we have is that my daughter, Hannah, who's now in 6th grade, has become pen pals with one of your students. Tracy. And the connection is
Father Stevens.
Yeah. So a few years ago, my dad emailed me and said, we're sponsoring Tracy and maybe your kids would like to become pen pals. So Hannah and Tracy have become intercontinental best friends.
Right. And by the way, Uganda is not accepting any international mail right now. So if Hannah has sent some and heard nothing back, it's because they still haven't opened the airport to international mail.
Sure.
How about email?
Yeah, email.
Email's fine. That's what we're doing now.
Email to us.
Right.
Send it to the office and they print it out.
Okay. How's going on, kids? We talked about Tracy, which is one of mine, and I also have Ibra.
Yeah. Oh, Ibra. Is how they, yeah.
Sebagala Ibra. Ibrahim.
Right.
Yes. Both of them, and it was not intentional, Father.
No.
They're both geniuses. They're
both geniuses.
They're just. The mystery of a high IQ. I can't explain it here or there.
Comes from some of these children from poverty and half starved and poor health care until they come to us, and it's just amazing.
Just a little love, huh? Just a little
love
and lunch.
And school lunch.
Lunch every day.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful because we've been sponsoring Ibra for a number of years, and it was my in-laws were interested in doing something, and so I said, "Hey, sponsor a child," and they picked up Tracy. And when they both passed away 2 years ago, you can't drop the children, So my wife and I picked them up, and it's wonderful. And our parish also, we don't sponsor a child specifically, but we give a regular monthly amount. And
we appreciate it.
It's just a wonderful outreach for the for the people to be involved in something specific that they can see the results from.
Right. The monthly donations from your parish and many of our other donors, together with the regular annual or monthly sponsors, provides the underpinning for our finances. You know, there's a strong base that we can count on every year that's then complemented by one-time donations and results of presentations. So it's so important.
Yeah, well, I like what you said in the video that we played earlier, that the ministry is practical. What was the phrase? Practical compassion, or compassionate and practical. You know, and it very much, you know, Sharon, you were sharing with us your experience in Calcutta. And of course, you can't mention even the town of Calcutta without thinking of Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a better practical expression of love than Mother Teresa's work.
Mm.
And as far as the education of children goes, what you're doing is very practical with the medical care and the clothing and the food. And because the education has to go beyond the classroom, beyond the grades, you know.
Absolutely. If they don't have, oh, we're running out of time. If they don't have love,
you're fine.
If they don't have love and encouragement and food and clean clothes and medical
Right.
care, they're not going to care about school. So
Right.
that's how our ministry developed. We started by saying, well, we're giving them things they need to make their educational experience as good as it can be. It's kind of changed to make their life as good as it can be during the time they're under our care.
Right. And we learned this one step at a time. I mean, the very first thing we learned was when we had our first group of kids in primary school, reviewed their report cards, and some of them were doing very poorly, even though their attendance was good. So I met with the teacher and said, why is, Johnny doing so poorly? And she said, well, he usually falls asleep in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why do you think that is? And she said, well, maybe if he had lunch, he could stay awake. And suddenly, okay, I guess our tuition doesn't pay for lunch. So that's when we started making sure all of our kids, piece by piece, lunch, and then uniforms, and then shoes. And
treating the malaria they get 2 or 3 or 4 times a year.
And it didn't happen all at once. We didn't walk into this all knowing. And, the kids that we had from the very beginning were like our guinea pigs. And we're very thankful they survived those early years while we were learning.
Sure.
And now that early group now is in vocational school and university.
Wow.
I'm going to put perspective on all this that we're talking about and the finances again. Sponsoring a child is $300 a year.
For primary school.
For primary school.
Yes.
Tuition here in Sacramento, California, going to a private Christian school is $500 to $700 a month.
Oh.
But that includes everything, right? Their uniforms, their food.
No, that gets them in the school.
In the school.
That gets them a desk.
Yeah, they give them entrance and a desk. And for $300 a year, you're providing not only the tuition for the school, the books, the clothes, and a meal.
And healthcare.
And healthcare. That if you're looking for a financial deal, I mean, get the biggest bang for your buck. This is where it is. It's just been phenomenal. And I know as a board member of a foundation passing out money, every time you came up, it was just a joyful experience, and there was no questions. It's like, okay, go. Whatever they ask for, we're giving it to them. We're going through the motions, but we couldn't wait.
We sweated those presentations. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it just, we cannot emphasize how important those grants were at that time. In fact, it was the initial grant that inspired us to continue on to university level with all of our kids. And now it's a given. Every high school graduate can go on to university or vocational school. And that's thanks to the Cottonwood Foundation and Farah Foundation.
So what's the cost of university? I mean, so $300, if someone were to give $25 a month, they could sponsor a primary school student. But as they go older through high school and advanced high school and university, what are the costs that people are looking at there?
For secondary, it's $720 for the year, which is what, $60 a month. And again, all of these cover everything.
And for secondary, most of them are in boarding school. That's why it's much more.
So, again, it's amazingly reasonable from a Western point of view.
Sure.
For a Ugandan family, even if they've been able to do primary, high school is out of reach for them.
Yeah,
Sure.
$1 a day.
They're making $1 or $2 a day. So, $60 a month is for one student.
What's a university?
2,100
for 1 year.
Well-
Tuition, room, board, all books, and of course they have expensive books too, like in the States. Medical care,
Yeah.
everything.
clothes. We give them a clothing
Allowance for all our tertiaries.
spending allowance.
Right, vocational is 1,200 to go to a vocational or business college, and for all of our vocational and university kids, they're attending school with children from well-to-do families, middle class, upper middle class, the upper classes of Uganda, and we are not going to send them there in orphans' rags. Through high
Right.
school, they get uniforms. Primary
Self-esteem.
and secondary school, we don't have to worry about clothes. So we give them all a clothing allowance and a small spending allowance so they can be on par with all the kids that come from better families.
Or kind
And
of,
that's included. And,
kind of on. par.
right. I mean, yeah, not the
Well,
most,
respectable,
yes.
Respectable.
Yes.
presentable. Yeah.
Presentable, not ashamed, so they don't have to be ashamed.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I think, in 5 years when my son is ready to go to college, I think I'll just send him down to you guys,
Absolutely. Send
You'll
That'll
save
be
money.
cheap.
It'll be much better.
When I go to graduation, I do see the occasional white face among the graduates. It's rare, but it's there.
So as we're drawing this to a close, what are your immediate needs? I mean, COVID has changed a lot of things. So now you have students not in school. What does it look like for you, and what are your immediate needs as a ministry right now? How can people help you right now?
Well, as always, the best way to help is donations, cash donations. A lot of times we get, because can we send school supplies? Can we send books? And there are two things going against that. One is Uganda is very regulated, the educational system. The curriculum is set for textbooks that can only be bought in Uganda. And the cost of shipping to ship generic school supplies would cost more than what we could pay for them in Uganda. So that's why really cash donations are what we need the most. What has changed now for us is with COVID coming to its 6th month in Uganda, is many of our families are suffering.
They're hungry.
They're hungry. The two things working against them. One, the kids that we were buying lunches for and the boarding kids who were getting all their meals have now been eating from home. So their single moms and other caregivers have these extra mouths to feed, and their own income has been reduced because of the shutdown in Uganda, limitations on transportation.
One of the main things that the president of Uganda did was he shut down all public transportation. This is the buses and the motorcycle taxis. And that's the way people got around. People who sell, for example, tomatoes from their home would take a bus into town to the big market in town, buy them every day, take them back to their little fruit stand and sell them. Well, he shut down the buses and motorcycle taxis and everything like that. So what we've been spending money for is giving food allowances to many of our families
that have been struggling. And of course, there's the primary school program now,
which we're paying
for, the home study program. All of our university finalists now have been freed up to do their senior research project. So we've been funding that. And many of our families too, with single moms, have fallen behind on their rent. So we've paid anywhere from 3 to 6 months rent arrears for these families. So this is kind of where the other funds have been redirected, is to keep these families afloat during this time.
Keep them alive.
Yeah, definitely keep them alive. Another thing we were blessed with.
Plus, they're all still getting their medical care
Right.
with
Right.
even more regularity because they're home from school and close to the hospital.
So are you redirecting funds that's not being used for tuition, since some schools are closed for these purposes?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so your costs, your organizational costs are actually the same. The input,
Right.
the output. I mean,
Close.
maybe the input's not the same, but your output is still the same, even with the lack of tuition.
Pretty close.
All
Okay.
the money donated for sponsored students that we're not using for the primary school kids we are holding it.
Okay.
Because when schools open up, we are going to be hit with tuition for 280 students all at once. Now, normally this is spread out over 2 or 3 months, as the different schools start at different times between January.
Especially the vocational schools start at staggered
It's kind of
times.
staggered time. So we are holding in reserve right now a full year's worth, waiting for the day when everybody goes back to school all at once. So all of that tuition money is still earmarked for tuition. And then the generic, non-designated funds that are coming in is what we're using for these other purposes.
Our office is open, our rent, our
Sure.
And like Sharon said, everyone's still receiving all the medical care. And also some of our parents and guardians have had health crises.
and we've paid their
So
medical care too, which we don't normally.
It's not a standard part of the program, but whenever a parent or guardian becomes seriously ill and can't afford their own health care, it ties into what we're doing for the children.
It's very important that the place where the children live, that the adult stays alive there. So the
Sure.
children
Yeah.
can be there on school holidays and whatever. So we have to keep our caregivers alive too.
Wow. Well, it's really just a tremendous blessing to hear about the work that is going on down there, that you guys started with Frank and Agnes, carrying on while you're in the United States, unable to get back down there to Uganda. And I've included some links in the comments. So if everybody looks down there, there are some links to your website, to your Facebook page. There's an email address. People can reach out to you. And this really is just a tremendous ministry. One last thing that I really love about your ministry is that the only criteria is need.
Yes.
It's not about religion or clan or this or that or IQ. It's about need. If there's a financial need, you guys respond and help. And even when new financial needs or crises are presented to you, your hearts are open to try to do everything you can to find a way to help people.
Right.
So I feel blessed personally to be a sponsor and a benefactor. I feel like I benefit more than anybody else. And I know my family has benefited from having contact with your ministry and your students. So I pray that God will grant you many more years in doing this and many more helping hands too. But I guess I do have one postscript, one last question. What would you say to somebody who, when they hear about mission opportunities such as Project Mexico, such as OCMC, such as whatever comes in front of them, if they say, "Oh, that's for the young people," what would be your answer?
Well, I think our lives are our answer. No, of course it's not. If the calling is there, go. Project Mexico, OCMC short-term teams are wonderful opportunities to get a feel for the mission field and what it's like. And I would say if anyone has the slightest tugging at their heart that this might be something they'd like to do, I say go, do it. Don't hesitate. And when you do it, keep an open mind, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and keep your heart open to listen to what God is telling you to do.
I think you've been very successful. And I remember in my early years when I doing my own research on good parenting and whatnot, one thing that stuck with me was a comment that your parenting, the success of your parenting is not seen in your children, it's seen in your grandchildren. And what you've been doing and open to God's calling and the ministry with these children, your faithfulness to the gospel is apparently being reflected in your grandchildren, which is just wonderful. And also your Uganda grandchildren, as you've been telling, they're coming back, bringing their children, and the growth in the community. It's just glorious to be a part of and a supporter of this wonderful work that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have been greatly blessed, more than we ever could have imagined through this work.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your many stories. And we hope that the COVID crisis can wind down so you can get back to your home in Uganda, get back to your large and robust family down there, and continue the work. But we hope to stay in touch with you and receive updates from you in the future. And also hello to your granddaughter, Anna Cunningham, who is en route. I know she's actually watching right now, but she is en route to Mexico to be the head of home building for Project Mexico for, God willing, a very eventful summer of 2021.
Right. We couldn't be prouder of her.
Yeah. And we had her on the show a couple weeks ago to talk about her adventures, and we mentioned you, and she just lights up when talking about you and the work and the impact that has had on her. So we're very happy for your whole family work, and we hope this is a good example to everybody else. It doesn't matter whether you're young or you're old, the sharing the love and the gospel of Jesus Christ is the mission of everybody.
Amen.
So thank you for having us on the show.
Yes,
what we see in the saints, and what we remember in the saints really is just a very short period towards the end of their life.
Yeah,
that's where the glory.
What are you saying? How many more years do we have left?
No, I mean
many years.
Oh, okay.
You have many years.
Many
the
more.
Glory of God is now shining through your lives after these many years of ministering, and it's just a joy to watch and participate in.
Thank you.
All right. Well, God willing, we'll be back with another Stories at Work episode next Thursday at the same time. Peter and Sharon, may God bless your work. And to my special guest co-host, my dad, Father Stephen, thank you for joining me. And I look forward to having you on again at some point in the future.
Thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.